printing this. Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 4, and this is our first one going live. We are streaming with StreamYard here, straight to the YouTube. So make sure you guys send your questions in if you have any. If anyone's even watching, that would be fantastic. Send those in, and me and Calvin will answer that as much as we can. This week, we're going to go through some news and notes. We're going to go through the week in review, a column that Calvin puts together over at dynastyvipers.com. Go through your waiver wire and starts and sits. You can check us out here. I'm Matt Donnelly at Dingus4. And Calvin, you want to kind of give them your new Twitter handle? Because I'm about to call you Dino Cascal, which is no longer a thing.
Sure. Yeah, it's Calvin and Hobby. Just a little play on my old favorite cartoon, Calvin and Hobbes. So, yeah, Calvin and Hobby on Twitter. Certainly, yeah, love the interaction. Would love to hear from you on there.
Wasn't that the good day of cartoons? You could put on the old Garfield, and then there'd be like the Calvin and Hobbes, and you have all these Snoopy would kick in there every once in a while. Like those are back in like the golden age of cartoons in the newspaper when people actually read a newspaper.
Right.
So you kind of go back and forth, and
my kids would have no idea what a newspaper is today.
No, well, mine do. It's what we use to train our dogs with.
There you go. Yeah, they might say, is that the thing that always like sits in the driveway until you throw it away?
Hey guys, I see you there. Rider Digest. We're doing good here. We're doing good. Glad you guys just at least dropped us a line there to let us know someone's paying attention to what we're doing. So thank you very much there, Nate and crew, for checking this out here. I know you guys are a big support of what we're doing, and glad to have you aboard. And you can give me pointers of how bad this my first production is going here. So there's my Twitter handle in the bottom corner there. We may have some people join in as we go throughout this show here. I'm not too sure who's going to join in. I sent out the link to a few different guys here with the Dynasty Vipers family, so to speak, with Roberto Serrano and Paul Barrera, Brad Martz, all guys that could be joining us tonight. And if not, it's the Calvin and Hobby show here going on.
Well,
so let's get right to our news and notes. We're going to try and keep this show to an hour because we'll probably bore you guys within the first 20 minutes. I got a murder going on in the background again. Fantastic. First thing first, I know this one's close to home. This is Calvin. He's a big Saints fan, if you guys didn't know that already. Drew Brees looks like he is down probably 6 weeks. I think they're not putting him in IR, so they must believe he's closer to 6 than he is to 8 weeks right now.
Yeah, it's tough down here in New Orleans right now. In fact, the biggest conversation is Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill. And there's a lot of Taysom Hill fans here in Louisiana. I think there are a lot of people who think he would be the better option. And it's hard to blame him because it wasn't that long ago, just in the preseason, Sean Payton compared him to, of all people, Hall of Famer Steve Young. So Sean Payton really isn't one for a lot of hyperbole. If he says it, it's very possible that he really does believe it. And if he does, then we may see Taysom Hill be a lot more involved than a lot of people are expecting. Personally, I would love to see Teddy Bridgewater get an opportunity. And I love Teddy Bridgewater. I've loved him since he was in college, since he was a first-round draft pick there in Minnesota. I hated to see the knee injury. But this is a real opportunity for him. And some of my belief in Teddy Bridgewater is rooted in my belief in Sean Payton, because this will be the first time that Sean Payton has had to put together a game plan here in New Orleans for Teddy Bridgewater, and let it be Teddy Bridgewater centric. Everything else that he's done has been based on a game plan that would be for Drew Brees. And Teddy Bridgewater is not Drew Brees. He's a different kind of quarterback. So there's a lot of people who are kind of taking that, and they're talking about selling off Michael Thomas. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. If you dig into last week, Teddy Bridgewater targeted Michael Thomas plenty. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. But, yeah, it's an interesting time here in New Orleans. It's going to be weird tuning in on Sunday and seeing somebody other than number 9 under center.
Here's what I like to think of. I think right now in redraft, you could be getting a discount on Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas because of the 6 weeks that we're going to see of probably Teddy Bridgewater, and I could actually see him splitting a lot. I think you're going to see almost maybe 75% Teddy Bridgewater, 25% Taysom Hill until one gets a groove, and then we'll see what Sean Payton can do with that group. This is a chance for Sean Payton to show how good of a coach he is. It's going to really test him here. Drew Brees, absolute first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt in anyone's books on that. And Payton, any kind of scars or scabs that Sean Payton has in his coaching is going to be exposed if he can't get the ship righted right now. Because the talent around the roster, that defense is much improved. Cameron Jordan, by the way, that touchdown should have counted. I'm just going to say that right now. The refs blew it, or literally they blew it. And so the defense is set there. They held, I think, the LA Rams pretty much in check last week. And with all due respect to Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, that is a good Rams defense. Right. So right now is probably the lowest opportunity for you to buy on Kamara, Michael Thomas, even Jared Cook. If you're looking for a redraft tight end, get in on Jared Cook because he's probably going for pretty much nothing right now because he had a brutal week with the drops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really did. And Jared Cook is a pro. I have no doubt he's going to turn it around. He'll develop a really good rapport and relationship. He did not get very much work in the preseason. Some of that's being exposed now. I think that'll be fine. Now, the next 2 weeks will be interesting. Regardless of who gets under center, at Seattle and then facing the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a tough task. And it can be the quarterback's fault. It cannot be the quarterback's fault. If they go out there and they lay an egg, they don't win the next 2 games, there's going to be a lot of people screaming for whoever the other person is. So if Teddy Bridgewater takes most of the snaps, the Saints don't win a couple of games, you could get a lot of talk for Taysom Hill. And we'll see. Honestly, Taysom Hill might be the more exciting fantasy option. I feel like as a Saints fan, I'm kind of hoping that Teddy Bridgewater can take that job and run with it. But from fantasy perspective, Taysom Hill is – I don't know that he's Steve Young, but Gardner Minshew came out and he did okay last week. I think he's in a similar vein. What did Minshew have, like 50, 60 yards rushing? I think Taysom Hill could do something pretty similar. Maybe somewhere between Minshew and like a Josh Allen is what I would kind of expect. And that could be pretty exciting for fantasy. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed here, like Ryder Digest just pointed out. That Rams-Saints game, we were expecting fireworks until Drew Brees went down. Like, we were looking at 2 good offenses. You got Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp. And then on the Saints side, you got Kamara, Brees, Cook, Michael Thomas. So I think a lot of those in the fantasy community were really let down by that game after Drew Brees went down because he affects that game not only for the Saints, but he affects it for even the Rams or the opposition's offense too, because now they can go back into more of a run game. They don't need to pass to play catch up. So it kind of changes a lot of dynamics. And like you said, this week, everyone's favorite player on every team is always the backup quarterback, right? It's the backup goalie in hockey. It's the guy who's not playing that if you start to stink up the joint, they want the next guy. And Jadeveon Clowney coming in this week is really going to test these guys. Like that guy's a freak of nature. That Seahawks front 7 is probably top 5, top 7 in the league right now. And they don't even have Jaron Reed back yet. So that's going to be a real good test for the Saints this week going on. Another quarterback who went down. Oh, boy, this is one of my favorite injuries. I hate to say it. I don't wish injuries upon anyone, but Ben Roethlisberger is done for the season, going on IR with a elbow injury. Had surgery on it the other day. It looks like it's Mason Rudolph's show going forward the rest of the season. For me, I don't know if this really affects the Steelers as much as everyone seems to think it is. I think Mason Rudolph is a very competent quarterback, but I think where you're going to see this happen is James Washington's value is going to go through the roof. You got a quarterback and his wide receiver from college playing in Pittsburgh going off. Anytime in the preseason James Washington was going off, it was because Mason Rudolph was behind center.
Well, and weren't they roommates in college? I think I read that as well, that they spent a lot of time together, maybe even were roommates. And, you know, James Washington didn't get on the field quite as much last week as I was hoping. And in fact, he really he he hasn't been on the field as much as you would hope. For the last few weeks, I was I was a little disappointed to see that, especially after that first week when you had Dante Moncrief just look like he was just completely incompetent.
You mean Dante Moncrief looked like Dante Moncrief? The Dante Moncrief we all know about? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, on the season, Washington has been on the field like just a little bit above 55%, but I expect that to go up a little bit. And a lot of it is Moncrief, and a lot of it is, the familiarity with James Washington. And not to, you try to put yourself in the coach's shoes as much as you can and tell the story and talk about, what would I want to do? And I'm not an NFL coach, but man, a guy like Mason Rudolph making his first NFL start, getting a guy like James Washington on the field who, he's familiar with him, but he's also really talented and would be your second best option, as far as I'm concerned, as a wide receiver. Deontay Johnson might get a little bit more work too. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. Matchup's not necessarily great this week, but going to be interesting to see what happens in Pittsburgh.
Well, the one more thing I'll add on with James Washington is he doesn't need a lot of targets to go off for you in fantasy. He is one of those big play type guys. Recently, we've seen guys like John Ross, Marquise Brown kind of go off. All they need is one pass, and they're gone. It could be 60 yards. And we've seen that with Washington throughout his early career. His big plays have been his fantasy performances, right? Anytime he's on the field, he's always that threat for that big play. And the Steelers are going to need those big plays right now. I think James Conner, I read, was a little dinged up. So he sounds like he's good to go anyway this week, but he's a little dinged up. So something to keep an eye on here too going forward and what the Steelers are going to be able to do. So we go from one running back situation there in Pittsburgh. We head back out on the West Coast there. The LA Chargers, I just read today that Melvin Gordon will play this year, or he says he will play this year. Whether it's with the Chargers or not, this does not sound like a Le'Veon Bell type thing where he's going to hold out for the whole season. I think Melvin Gordon wants to accrue that season. Do the Chargers want him, though?
Do they want him? Do they try to trade him? And if you were Melvin Gordon, how much are you going to put yourself on the line and risk, a la Earl Thomas last year, risk a big injury that could cost you in your paycheck later on? It's a really interesting situation. In fact, Austin Eckler is the number one running back in PPR leagues right now for the year, which is crazy. So the Chargers have a lot of questions. It's just like the NFL. We get a couple of data points. We're really excited. We're starting to figure some things out. And then, boom, everything gets kind of tossed up on its head for us, right?
Yeah, it just gets all tossed. That's the thing with fantasy. You think you know what you're doing. You think you know how it's going to break down, and then you don't know nothing.
Right.
You see it all the time. And fantasy analysis and stuff like that, we kind of base things on the numbers and what things look at and how the matchups go. But it's really hard to predict the unpredictable. And we try our best when we make these predictions. But you can't tell me right now, beginning of the season, even knowing Melvin Gordon was out, that any fantasy analyst out there had Austin Eckler as a top 5 running back.
Right.
If you do, kudos to you. But whether you're this casual fan, the casual player, an analyst at whatever level you're at, there's no way you had Austin Eckler as a top 5. There's no way you had John Ross and Marquise Brown as top 10 wide receivers. So we like to. There's a little bit of a science. There's a little bit of work that goes into the behind the scenes, but the NFL and fantasy is about as unpredictable as it goes. My best teams that I think are my best teams have struggled already this season. Like teams with Todd Gurley, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. These are some of my best players. And on my bench on all those teams is Terry McLaurin. Sitting on my bench, getting points because I don't put him in because he's not Devontae Adams. He's not Keenan Allen. Thankfully, Keenan Allen's actually performed well. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I've got this probably the best team on paper. They're just not performing. And then I flip it over to another league of mine where my team is trash. And they're the second highest scoring team, and they're 2-0 going into this week. So,
right. Because you have like Mark Andrews or somebody like that that's going off for you. Yeah, it's unpredictable. And hey, Terry McLaurin, that's my guy. I love Terry McLaurin. I literally last night went through and put in an offer for him in every single league that I'm in.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how many people have come up to me now trying to make a trade for him, and it's not happening. There's no way I'm trading him off my roster right now. In fact,
yeah.
He's been sitting on a couple of my taxi squads, and he got called up this week just because I'm like, I got to bring him up. There's no way I can keep him on my taxi squad, especially when my team sucks, and have him doing nothing. So
he looks awesome. In fact, I rewatched that Washington game from this past weekend, and he looks the part of a number one wide receiver. He's winning at the point of attack. Catching in traffic. He's targeted in the red zone. Everything you want out of a number one wide receiver. Maybe not a top 12 type wide receiver, but in terms of Washington, he is their number one wide receiver, and he looks great.
Well, and his competition for targets is down to Paul Richardson and Trey Quinn. So there's not much competition there, and I'm pretty sure we could see Terry McLaurin at the end of the season have more receptions in his first season in the NFL than he did at 3 seasons at Ohio State. I think he only had 75 receptions in those 3 years at Ohio State. So he was one of those guys that during the the draft process, he was climbing up everyone's radar there. He was starting to get some momentum, and some people kind of shrugged it off. Me, if you got him late second, early third round of your rookie drafts, you scored.
Yeah,
I know I got him a lot of my really crappy teams that I had early picks. I know I got him early third round and just about every draft I went into. So,
yep.
And now we come across another quarterback, going back to the Breeze and Ben Roethlisberger thing. Ben Roethlisberger is kind of an interesting one too. We'll get into that in a bit. But Eli Manning, Hall of Famer or not a Hall of Famer?
Not for me. Very good. Like I love. So Eli is from across. He's like grew up 30 miles from me. Graduated same class. We competed in different things. We were at the same place. And I went up to Ole Miss and watched him. My dad's a big Ole Miss fan. I think he's had an unbelievable career. 2 Super Bowls. Beat Tom Brady in 2 of them. So he kept us from Tom Brady having 2 extra Super Bowls. So I will always be thankful for that. But
that should be enough right there to get you into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. But no, I guess I feel like if the Hall of Fame is going to be the exclusive group that it is, there were some great years for Eli. I don't feel like it was enough. And who knows? Maybe we get far enough away. That's why there's a 5-year wait, right? There's a 5-year wait. We get far enough away. We forget the last little part of Eli. We start watching the highlights. We see the guy catching the ball on his head, stuff like that. Maybe we get a little bit caught up and we remember some of the good things and accentuate the good. Right now, it's hard to remember anything but what we've seen the last couple of years. But no, I just don't think he has quite got to that level. Certainly not. When you think about him or his brother, he's better. You think about him or Ben Roethlisberger, to me, Ben Roethlisberger is better. Him or Drew Brees? Drew Brees is way better. But was he ever really a top 5 quarterback even in his generation and in his class among his peers? And I don't know that he ever really was.
Well, that's an interesting question there, because among those peers, it's funny. Okay, so we got Eli Manning, and I think his record was like 116 and 116 right now with 2 Super Bowl championships. Mm-hmm. You got Ben Roethlisberger, who's got the numbers, but 1 championship. And then you got that other forgotten guy that everyone always piles on, Phillip Rivers, no championships, but better numbers, I think, than both of them. Yeah. So who was the best quarterback of that group? Now, don't get me wrong. If you put Phillip Rivers on those Giants teams, I think Phillip Rivers has 2 championships there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he does too. And honestly, I don't know that if you're the Chargers, it worked out great for you. I don't feel like you're upset that you didn't end up with Roethlisberger or Eli. If you're the Giants, I think you're happy with Eli. You're always, he's going to have a statue out front. and they're going to love him forever there. He'll never pay for another meal. Roethlisberger, I know Pittsburgh has a love-hate relationship with Roethlisberger, but I think for the most part they wouldn't trade him for Eli or for Rivers. I think everybody ended up with it's hard to remember a class where there were that many guys that are, if nothing else, borderline Hall of Famers coming out of the same class in a long time, since that Marino class.
Yeah, that Marino, Jim Kelly kind of era there. That was arguably the best quarterback class ever to come out.
Oh, yeah.
Based on Hall of Famers. But, yeah, so you get only one gets to go in for you. Rivers, Roethlisberger, or Manning.
Man, at the height of their powers, man, I might say Phillip Rivers. I love his attitude. I love his competitiveness. I don't think anybody really can match that for him. His throwing motion was ugly, but he threw a free ball, his deep ball. He was always, that's the guy I think I want under center.
You know, you look at the numbers, the teams he went with. He had some opportunities there with LaDainian Tomlinson. That 1 year against the Patriots there, Tomlinson was hurt. Rivers was playing with a torn ACL. Like, he was going out there and he was gutting it out for the team. They had some talented teams there when he was with San Diego at the time. Mm-hmm. They just couldn't get over that hump. And it pains me because I do believe Phillip Rivers of the three is the best quarterback and has the best numbers. And you put him on any of those two other teams when they went to on their championship runs, he wins a championship with them as well. Yeah. And he's probably named Super Bowl MVP in both those events too. Yeah. So for me, it's definitely Phillip Rivers. I don't know, it's hard for me to discount Eli Manning and his 2 Super Bowls. It really is. I'm so torn on Eli Manning as a Hall of Famer. I could argue this both ways, and I don't think you could be wrong either way. Like, if you argue him,
I agree with that. That's part of what sports is, right? I mean, sports is, if we can't argue about sports, then we might as well not even play the game. And Eli is a perfect case for that. And there are people who strongly believe that he is absolutely 100% a Hall of Famer. And look, if Joe Namath's a Hall of Famer, I think Eli Manning maybe should be. But I also I'd say Joe Namath probably shouldn't be. So
that's for another show there before we tick off any Jets fans that might tune into this.
Right.
But Joe Namath, he had some good numbers. He had some good seasons in the AFL, and those can't be argued. When you start looking back and you start going over different generations and stuff, what he was able to do in his time in the AFL and the way the game changed when he was there, I think is part of the reason why he gets in. Not for his guarantee and stuff, but that was a time when the Chargers had that air raid offense, the original air raid offense coming in. That AFL was strong. The Chargers, the Chiefs, the Raiders, like the Denver Broncos were in there for a bit. And when they merged, it changed how the NFL is because of the way those offenses came in. They were more of a passing offense in the AFL coming into a run-first offense in the NFL. So when I think of Hall of Famers and generational players, I want to know how they changed the game overall and what imprint they made. So I take the guarantee that Joe Namath made and kind of toss that out the window. But it was funny because when he won a Super Bowl, it wasn't on his arm. It was on the running game of the Jets at that time. So we'll probably get into that on another show. So one of the things that you've been doing on Twitter for quite a while, and now you finally put pen to paper and put it on the website here, dynastyvipers.com, is your box score scouting, you call it. So we're just going to go over a few of these games here and kind of roll off and tell us first off, let's talk about what your box score scouting is, and then we'll talk about these games. We'll probably hit off about 4 or 5 of them here, depending on the time.
So, like a lot of people, I guess most of my Sundays is not spent watching 8 games at a time, 10 games at a time, whatever it is in that first round. It's been watching the Red Zone channel, and I see the highlights. I love football, so the Red Zone channel is amazing. I love watching that. When the Saints are on, I like to watch the Saints, but I have the Red Zone channel on at the same time. And so, I get a sense of what's going on in the NFL. I'm checking Twitter during it, so I'm getting some kind of sense. But for a while, after the games were over, I started going back into the box scores and just seeing what jumped out. And then I was doing that for a podcast I was preparing for last year, and I prepared notes and just here's what was interesting. And then I just decided, hey, I'm just going to put this out. Here's things I found. I'm going to put it out on Twitter, and then contacted you, and decided I might as well just make like a little semi article about this and put it out there. So it's looking through. I'm looking at snap counts. I'm looking at opportunities. I'm looking at targets. I'm looking at touches, different things like that. And talent. We spend so much of the off season in Dynasty looking at talent. We watch them in college. We see the scouting reports. We got a lot of guys we follow on Twitter who are really good at that. We get guys we believe in, you guys we don't. But then when the NFL season comes and you're looking at who am I going to start from a week-to-week basis, opportunity really matters a lot. And so that's why looking at the box scores, sure, it doesn't show you everything that you can see in the game, but it can show you opportunity. And when you start picking up on patterns and things like that, that's to me, little things that jumped out at me. For instance, John Brown getting 7 targets a game the last couple of games. He's getting high value type targets. Receptions. Little things like that just jump out, and I need to go check those numbers again. But anyway, he jumped out at me, and he's a clear number 1 wide receiver for his team. Him and Josh Allen are doing a lot of really good things together, and I'm not sure I would have seen that just watching Red Zone.
So let's talk about one of these games, especially because I'm such a homer. We're going to talk Oakland Raiders here. But I also found it to be a very interesting game. Kansas City, Oakland. Oakland came out, scored 10 points right in the very beginning there. And then turned into the second quarter was owned by the Chiefs, scoring 28 points. And then there was no scoring after that. So it was kind of a tough game to kind of sit back and try and figure out what was going on there. And we don't – I'm still confused, Damian Williams or LaShawn McCoy. I don't know which wide receiver is going to be their big gun, whichever week it is, whether it's Sammy Watkins, never Sammy Watkins, by the way, Marcus Robinson, or Mecole Hardman. I'm confused about how they're going to use. At least with Oakland, we know Josh Jacobs is going to put up a solid stat line every week, and Darren Waller is going to get you some points, especially in tight end premium leagues.
Well, what if I told you that there's a wide receiver on their team who might still be the fastest of any of their current guys outside of Tyreek Hill, and he's getting double-digit targets a game? To me, that's the guy that I want. Yeah, I'm really excited that Demarcus Robinson had as big a game as he did, and it was huge. Sammy Watkins got 13 targets last week. Now, they didn't connect, but you don't expect that from Patrick Mahomes to Sammy Watkins. He only ended up with 6 catches for 49 yards. That's really inefficient, but that's not going to be the norm. That one had to do with some coverages, but he's looking at Sammy Watkins. He wants to throw the ball to Sammy Watkins. I don't expect that to change. And yeah, I think Mecole Hardman could have some really big games. Demarcus Robinson obviously did this week, and I think he could too. Travis Kelce is going to get his. I'm not worried. I think a lot of people were disappointed in Sammy Watkins, but when you look at the opportunities, look at the snaps that he played, I like Sammy.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway.
Well, he's one injury away from being hurt, obviously. But, man, if you're getting double-digit targets from Patrick Mahomes, I want you in my lineup.
Yeah, you're right. The volume's there, the opportunity's there. But it's still Sammy Watkins. And you know what? I don't have any real stats to back my hatred of Sammy Watkins. It's probably because I owned him when he first came out of college. He was injured all the time and pissed me off. And I just basically dropped him. So I'm probably kind of a scorned lover, so to speak, when it comes to Sammy Watkins. But it's never Sammy Watkins. And I feel the same about John Ross, too. So I've got my personal players that I've got on my scorned list. And Sammy's on the top of that list. Now, so when I'm giving advice and you're asking me out there, do I start Sammy Watkins? I'm always going to say never Sammy Watkins. So
ask
any
me.
question? Yeah, ask Calvin here when it comes to Sammy Watkins, because my opinion on Sammy Watkins is completely biased. There's I can't even give you a logical answer to why my hatred of Watkins is there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's surf around here. Philly Atlanta was another interesting game. Trying to make sense of this all here in that Philly. Well, it was tough to judge anything Philly did because they were so banged up. Elshon Jeffrey didn't play.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson has an abdomen injury. He's probably not going to play next week either. Nelson Aguilar dropped a huge touchdown opportunity there that would have sealed that game in the other direction before Julio got his, or after Julio got his touchdown. What I make of all this is I love Julio. Julio's my number one wide receiver in redraft. He is the best receiver in the game, in my opinion, complete package. But if you're playing someone like Philly or any team that's well coached where they're going to bracket Julio pretty much all game, look opposite of Julio. Calvin Ridley is going to have big games when he's playing against good teams, good, smart teams, like say, with the exception, maybe say New England. New England's playing someone. Chances are they, in the past, what they've done. Now they go Stephon Gilmore covers the best receiver, but in the past they've always put double coverage over their best receiver, double coverage over the second receiver and matched up man on man with their best to kind of take away both options. But you don't see that so much, and Calvin Ridley's good enough to make up for any kind of double coverage on Julio, and he had a pretty solid stat line this week.
So one of my biggest takeaways from this game is go take your Chris Godwin shares and trade them for Calvin Ridley right now if you can, because yes, Calvin Ridley he's a stud, and he should be the most exciting wide receiver in the NFC South. He's got Matt Ryan throwing him the ball. Matt Ryan is a good quarterback. Matt Ryan's not Tom Brady. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. He's got Julio Jones playing opposite him. Sure, Julio's going to get double-digit targets a lot of the games. But like you said, he's going to command a lot of coverage. Calvin Ridley is going to get a lot of opportunities opposite him, and it's going to be great for him. Just like when Julio Jones and Roddy White played together, and Calvin Ridley, he's come out of the gates, got 10 targets last week. He's got 2 touchdowns already this season. I really like now. I like Calvin Ridley, but let me ask you this. So outside of the wide receivers, what are you going to do with the running backs in Atlanta?
Oh, you know what? I love this Atlanta offense at the beginning of the season. I love Julio. I love Calvin. I love Austin Hooper. I love Matt Ryan. I've got him as a top 5 quarterback in all my preseason rankings for redraft and whatnot. Devontae Freeman is looking like a miss for me right now.
Yeah.
I had Devontae Freeman as fringe top 12 running back before the season started, and we just haven't seen that yet. Now, I'm going to stick it out with him for a little bit longer. I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt until he gets rolling. But, man, this one's going to hurt if I have to eat a little crow on this, because I was tooting up the Devontae Freeman party there, and it has not transpired the way I had anticipated. He's one of my biggest misses so far in the season right now. Now, hopefully he can turn it around and make me look a little bit better, but as of right now, it's not looking so good.
Yeah, he's getting snaps. I mean, he's, about as much as you would want a running back to. He's out there. He doesn't look like he has in the past. He doesn't look like the guy you're used to seeing. And, with the weapons that they have in the passing game, you would think it would create some rushing lanes. It just hasn't so far. And there's not really anybody behind him I'm excited about. Maybe Ito Smith. It looks like he's clearly the backup right now. But I don't know. Nothing excites me, I guess, about any of those guys. It's a mess.
Well, speaking of exciting, we're going to go back into the Dallas-Washington game. We have Michael Gallup suffered an injury. Looks like he's going to be missing a few games here. In comes Devin Smith, the former second-round draft pick of the New York Football Jets. The same Devin Smith we have not heard a single thing about in 3 years now, I believe it is. And all of a sudden, he comes in, hauls in 3 catches, 74, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Is he someone you can pick up in the waiver wire?
I mean, I did, and I'm in some pretty deep leagues. So I now they've got Miami this week, and I can absolutely see a scenario where Devin Smith gets a lot of work. He was targeted a pretty good bit. It was only 3, but it was in some pretty important situations. I can see them taking Michael Gallup's spot and decided that they want to move some of that over to Devin Smith. It's a grab back right now. In deeper leagues, I want him on my bench because he could absolutely turn into something. And Dak Prescott looks like a really capable, great quarterback right now. And again, you get a guy with his talent getting targets from someone like that. I want that.
Sup, Dougie? Welcome back, bud. How's it going? I just see Dougie here chiming in here on the YouTube feed.
Yeah,
he is. Looks like he's our only viewer right now. So we're making things work here. We've had a few people come and go. It's like a little tea party going on here. It's a come and go as you please kind of thing. I think you said right here, Dak 5 is a stud, top 5 quarterback every week. Dallas is going to have a decision here to make whether to pay this guy because they need to pay him now. Money, what's that saying I was using before? Money paid now is money saved later, kind of thing.
Yep.
And we've seen the LA Rams do it with Jared Goff. They paid him now to save a few million later on down the road. Dak is probably looking like that $35 million plus quarterback at this moment. And the longer they wait, if he keeps doing what he's doing and doing it with Devin Smith, there's going to be money that needs to get paid. And Dak Prescott's making guys like Devin Smith, Randall Cobb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup look pretty good as fantasy as flex options at the least.
The salary cap is a myth. You can find ways to get around it. Just absolutely pay Dak Prescott and do it before the salary cap starts to go up because it's going to. The league's going to get in the next round of bargaining, collective bargaining, that's going to go up. Pay him now. He's absolutely worth the investment. He's proven that right now. This is the best group of weapons he's ever had around him. His offensive line is healthy. Obviously, Zeke is great out of the backfield. Amari Cooper is a stud. Gallup, I hope he gets back quickly because he's a stud. And old man Jason Witten right out of the booth into being a pretty good red zone target for him too.
Yeah, we can argue here about Blake Jarwin and Jason Witten and what they're going to do here going forward because I'm not sure that might be the one Achilles heel that offense has right now is that tight end position. And Jason Witten, I think, brings some credibility to the locker room, if nothing else. But as far as production goes, he's been looking pretty good so far. But for me, A, can he hold up for the whole season after being in the broadcast booth for the last year? And B, can he actually make some big time plays other than the odd first down and stuff like that? He's always been more of a possession kind of receiver, more of a possession type tight end. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's pretty much where his value lies. If they're going to go make that big play out of the tight end position, try and hit that seam down the middle, it's probably going to be with Blake Jarwin.
They could, but I'll say this. They are absolutely running plays. Again, that's another game that I rewatched this week. And so Jason Witten's gotten 4 targets every single week. He's caught 7 of them, 2 touchdowns. He's not going to get, like you said, he's not going to run away with anything. He's the kind of guy that you're not looking to play him if you want upside at all. But in the red zone, they ran a play, and Blake Jarwin was wide open. Dak only had eyes for Jason Witten. I think he's that security blanket, especially when they get down there, down deep. Again, he doesn't have an explosive. If you put Dallas Goedert on this team, yeah, that would be awesome. But you don't have that. You got a guy that maybe he might get 30 yards and a touchdown. That's what you're hoping for if you play him. But
it's funny you mentioned Dallas Goedert because there was that rumor during the draft that was the tight end they wanted, and the Eagles jumped above him and got him, right?
Yeah. Oh, and that would be awesome. I love Goddard. I hate that he's there behind Ertz. I don't know. I've got Goddard in every single one of my dynasty leagues. I don't know what to do with him right now. He's hurt, but yeah, that would be amazing if you give Dak a weapon like that, like Oklahoma Doug's saying here. If you gave him a good tight end, the offense is already good, but man, it'd be even better.
Yeah, and we talked with Washington there. The two targets there you want to be looking at would be Terry McLaurin there and Chris Thompson for PPR. He's probably the back you want to own right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Adrian Peterson actually, he really didn't. Did I make note of his snap count? Yeah, Adrian Peterson was only on 18 of 62 snaps this past week, but Darius Guy's gone. A lot of people were excited about him. I was not. I didn't look for him in any leagues because Adrian Peterson is a Hall of Famer. He's not who he used to be, and this Washington team's going to throw the ball. And Chris Thompson is going to be the beneficiary of that in my mind.
Okay, I got Dougie here. I hope he's still kind of following along. This week, the Dallas Cowboys play the Miami Dolphins. How far do you drop Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith down your rankings this week? Because I do not think Miami's going to have a whole lot of snaps to work with, and that's going to affect these linebackers putting up some numbers. Tell Coach to view the trade offer on air. Debbie Hell in the cell.
Let's look at it. You should pull it up.
Let's see if I can pull up the trade offer. But something must have just came through.
I wonder if you can put it up on the screen.
Let's see here. It's got Dougie talking to me. I'm playing B Marts this week in another league of ours, and he's got like a stacked team. It's like not even fair. Oh yeah, he's done well in that league. Like he's benching guys like Stefan Diggs and DJ Moore and.
Okay, you mentioned that about Miami. While you're pulling that up, I'll just tell you something I was thinking about Miami, and you just tell me if I'm crazy. Miami, right now, they're going to get smoked this week again because Dallas is great. But two of the better teams in the league right now, if you were going to put together a top five, you would have New England in that list, and you'd probably have Baltimore in that list right now. I'm not saying Miami's going to be good, but people are just taking all of their assets for the Miami right now and just basically considering them trash and kicking them to the curb. If you are, I feel like a savvy owner is potentially looking at some of those Miami assets. The schedule is going to get better. They're not going to play Baltimore, New England, and Dallas every single week. They're going to have some easier matchups. They're at some point going to be able to move the ball. How much of it do you think? I know Miami's bad. I'm not saying Miami's probably not going to win a game. It might be the worst team I've ever seen. But I don't know if they're as bad as they've looked against New England and Baltimore.
Well, it's hard to believe a team is as bad as they looked against those two teams right now.
They're going to look bad again this weekend against Dallas because Dallas is great too. But
yeah,
it's a little bit better after that.
It's not a very favorable schedule for them right now. It's going to depend on that locker room and how they rebound and how they handle guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, getting traded and demanding out of there, how they're going to handle all these good players. The players in the NFL, they'll play regardless. They're always willing to play.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. It's how that locker room is going to respond, because we talk about this with the Raiders. We know the Raiders have a tough schedule coming up. How are they going to respond with a tough schedule and when those losses start to pile up? The same thing is with the Dolphins. Not only are the losses piling up, morale seems a little bit down. They've got a solid coach there that I think is going to rally the troops. But as far as talent goes, this may be the most talent-depleted roster in the entire NFL. And it's tough to say, like, you know what? They're kind of taking a play out of the Raiders and out of the Browns book there, loading up on these draft picks, but you still got to hit on those draft picks. And that's where the problem's going to be. Yeah, it's great having 3 firsts and 2 seconds next year, but what are you going to do with them? Because they've got so many holes. And one of the firsts they pick up is a spot they need to replace. It's like the Raiders. They traded Khalil Mack for a first, and they drafted Clelin Ferrell. Okay, maybe that's more of a dollar cents kind of thing. But if you're trading a top-end player, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Khalil Mack kind of thing, and you're replacing them with a rookie, you're A, hoping that this rookie is going to come in and play well, but B, you've traded a top player. You know what I mean? Like, Minkah Fitzpatrick is probably the best slot corner in the entire NFL. And he's so versatile. He can play strong safety, free safety. Either side, he can play corner. He plays a slot quite often, and he's a shutdown type guy.
If you use him right.
If you use him right. And I don't think he was ever used right. I think they even took him at snaps at linebacker. So Miami never used him properly. Obviously, there was some discontent there, even in the preseason. I think his mom was tweeting out to the Dolphins and stuff, too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was a really ugly situation there. I'm still trying to pull up this trade there that Doug's talking about. I can't seem to find it right now. But we're going to kind of keep going here. We're going to keep cruising along. Was there one game that you really wanted to touch on here?
One of the guys that jumped out, which is one of the things in looking through the box score that jumped out to me is Marquise Brown with Baltimore. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody that anything that they don't know. You're already excited about Marquise Brown. He didn't have as good a game in this second game. He still had a good game. He didn't have as good a game in the second week as he did in the first game. But I am way more excited about him after the second game than I am in the first. I know he broke those two big plays for the 2 touchdowns in week 1. He didn't get one here in week 2, but his snap count went from he only saw the field less than 20 times in the first week. This week it was up over 50 snaps. So they obviously looked at what he did in that first game, the game plan that they originally thought they were going to have for him. They realized very quickly that they want him on the field. And week 2, that coaching staff did the right thing and got him on the field. And he is clearly number 1 target for Lamar Jackson. Well, maybe Andrews, but Marquise is definitely his wide receiver 1. And that's one of the things that jumped out to me that I think is definitely get excited about that.
Just keep talking there. I found the trade here. I'm just going to try and pull it up on the screen here for us here. If you just keep talking, like I'm not a big Marquise Brown. Mark Andrews is the big one for me in Baltimore right now. Mark Andrews has been a blessing for a lot of my rosters, and he's putting up these numbers. Kyler Murray, he's putting up the air yards, but he's not getting those touchdowns right now, and that's hurting his fantasy. And we were all promised that he's like a cheat code. Kyler Murray is a cheat code, right? We haven't seen him run the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really haven't. I wonder if those matchups that he's faced, that's part of the thing that you don't know. You're trying to figure out in the very beginning of the season is you're trying to figure out what the matchups have been. And we didn't expect Detroit to be very good, but then they held Phillip Rivers to a fairly modest game. And then obviously he went into Baltimore. Now, some people are a little bit disappointed in what he did. I say if you go on the road into Baltimore and you put up 349 passing yards, yeah, you're doing pretty good. He's good. He's not adding the rushing yards yet. I absolutely think that that's going to come. And here we go. Here's your trade.
Here's the trade offer. So Team A is offering Cam Newton, Naheem Hines, Marlon Mack, Chris Herndon, who's still suspended, but he will be coming back, I think, after 4 games. So he'll be ready for, let's see, Jets have the bye in week 4. So he'll be back 1, 2, 3, week 6. I think he's eligible to come back. Then the 2023rd. So that 2023rd is a Debbie 2023rd. So what happens in this league is every year you get a draft from the rookie class or the incoming rookie, the next year's rookie class. So a lot of people take a lot of those Debbie players in the rookie draft, yada, yada, yada. So, for example, in this year's draft, guys like Jonathan Taylor, they're gone. Travis Etienne, he's gone. So a lot of the big name guys are already gone and moved on. So you kind of keep drafting the year after what your normal draft would be. So we have Newton, Hines, Mack, Herndon, the 2023rd for Lamar Jackson, Allen Robinson, and Jason Witten.
Interesting. So I have no idea which one of you guys has which. But just a little piece of interesting trivia. Who do you think has the most carries right now in the NFL through 2 weeks?
The most carries. Mark Ingram.
Marlon Mack.
I knew it was going to be something off the wall. That's why I went with Mark Ingram there.
Yeah, he's got, and it's a lower number, I guess, than I would have expected. It's 45, but I just feel like that's one of the things I've noticed too. Is I feel like carries are just down. But yeah, Marlon Mack has been on the field 71% of the offensive snaps, which is really high for a running back. 45 attempts, the most attempts in the NFL. So they're feeding him and they're treating him like a number one running back. Cam Newton looks broken, but I don't know. I'm not sure that's going to continue. I guess we'll see. That definitely a 2023. That's I'm not in many Devy leagues. You can tell me how interesting that is. Lamar Jackson looks great. I'm scared of the Bears. That's an interesting deal. I'm not sure I see a clear winner from what I'm looking at, and some of it might depend on what kind of an asset you feel like Cam Newton is.
Well, and that's where you believe it. If you think he's going to rebound and come back at some point this season, maybe come back stronger next season, it looks good. So you got Lamar Jackson versus Cam Newton on this breakdown. Who would you, for dynasty purposes, who do you prefer there?
Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Man. That's I don't know how you can not say Lamar Jackson right now. Lamar Jackson has had a very easy schedule. I don't want to take away from what he's doing at all. He's had a very easy schedule, but he absolutely looks the part. He gets KC this week. It's going to be really exciting to watch him against Pat Mahomes. And yeah, I feel like missing on Lamar Jackson could be similar to missing on, like, I don't want to say Mike Vick. I guess that's too cliche, but back when he was in Atlanta, he was a good fantasy asset, even though he wasn't necessarily the best passer. But man, he looks good. It's really tough. It's very close. I'd go Lamar Jackson as far as a fantasy asset right now, but I think it's closer than people think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns. Like right now, Lamar Jackson does look like that human cheat code that we're hoping Kyler Murray turns into. I think Kyler Murray's probably a better passer than Lamar Jackson. Yeah, it's tough for me to make a choice here between Newton and Jackson. I'd probably give the edge to Jackson just a little bit. Now, when I look at the Allen Robinson versus, I'm going to combine Hines and Mack here together. I actually think that Mack and Hines have the advantage over Allen Robinson, especially for dynasty purposes.
Yeah. So same here. And I mean, I guess it depends on what you need, but absolutely, I think Marlon Mack I was down on Marlon Mack coming into the year, but they're using him like a number one running back that's going to get a lot of touches, and there aren't a lot of those around.
And then you take a look at the other part of it, Herndon and a 2023 for Witten. Well, I honestly think Herndon is the better receiver going forward, especially in Dynasty, because Witten is probably one and done this season. Maybe you might get another year out of him. So I guess this trade comes down to me for where are you at with Lamar Jackson versus Newton? Because I do like Hines and Mack as an upgrade over Allen Robinson. It's depending on what your roster construction is. If you need a running back more than a wide receiver, then you definitely want to go to the Mack side. If you're desperate for a wide receiver and you have a stack load of running backs, then maybe Allen Robinson is a move you can make there. Herndon going forward, everything we've seen in the preseason and then the end of last year, Herndon is definitely the better receiver compared to Witten. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely an interesting offer there. It comes down to that Jackson versus Newton kind of thing. And go ahead.
Who would you be trading away?
Oh, I can't tell you that. That'll make biased opinion here.
Well, so I think this is close enough that some of this is going to depend on team construction. For instance, the reason why I asked that is if you're trading away Lamar Jackson and you're getting Cam Newton do you have another quarterback you'll be able to fill in for this week or the following week? However long Cam Newton isn't available. So there's some of those things absolutely to consider, but I think this, if it fits needs, I think this is a good deal. I'd lean the Newton, Mac, Herndon side, and I think you're buying low a little bit on Cam Newton, who, if he all of a sudden was a terrible quarterback, I would be shocked. That would be much more shocking than him continuing to be good at some point this year, right?
The starting running backs on that other team are pretty trash. Let's see if I could actually pull up the roster for you here. The team that would be receiving Newton,
okay,
currently has, I think, Matt Stafford as their other quarterback right now. So it's not like the Newton injury is not going to hurt him all that much in that scenario.
I like Stafford this week.
Stafford's always a nice little pickup, I think. I think he's going to put up some numbers all season for. And so it'd be, if Newton was traded there, it would be Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, and Cam Newton as the three quarterbacks. One quarterback league.
Mm-hmm.
The running backs that Dougie's referring to would be Chris Carson, Marlon Mack, Gus Edwards, Melvin Gordon, Devonta Freeman, Todd Gurley, and then like Doug Martin and Dari Agabawali and Bilal Powell. So really, without Mack, you're looking at Chris Carson, Devonta Freeman, Todd Gurley, and Melvin Gordon, who's not with the team right now.
Yeah. I still think Gurley is a guy that is a back-end running back one. So I'm not super worried about him. And Chris Carson, I guess it's going to be interesting to see how that moves forward with Rashad Penny. But yeah, adding in Marlon Mack to that would certainly be helpful.
Yeah, and then for the wide receivers, if you trade away Allen Robinson, you're looking at Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown, Randall Cobb, Emmanuel Sanders, and then it kind of gets a little shady after that. Willie Snead, Trent Taylor, Preston Williams. But they do have some players like Jalen Rigger coming up from the college ranks eventually. So it's definitely, and I know the other team that's trading away Marlon Mack, they need wide receivers. Obviously, you just heard the running backs that the other team has. They could definitely use Marlon Mack. I think this is a good trade for both teams.
Yeah.
Either way. And of course, there'd be a bit of an upgrade depending on what side of the Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson fence you're on.
Allen Robinson has a lot of people who absolutely love him. And Allen Robinson, I like Allen Robinson. I don't trust the Bears. And it's not just Trubisky. Trubisky, I think, is going to be better than he's been. He is a little hard to trust. But they spread the ball around a bit too. And if the team that you mentioned trading him away has Odell and Antonio and Keenan Allen, that's you can afford to get rid of that. And Mack looks better on that roster than Robinson.
So we're going to move on to the waiver wires. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to hit the quarterbacks right off the get-go. And there's one line in here. I want to read it because I think Brad, when he put this waiver wire, was reading my tweets. So one of the top waiver he's at the bottom of it. Anyway, Gardner Minshew, right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to argue this one here because he actually looked pretty good. Josh Rosen sounds like someone who, if you're in 2 QB leagues and you need that depth, he's someone to target because I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to hold that job much longer, especially we talked about that roster construction going on.
Right.
Mason Rudolph, definitely a high-end one here. I think a lot of people's waiver wires, people have picked him up already, and I think that connection with James Washington is going to play huge. Teddy Bridgewater, Luke Falk, Kyle Allen here. We just talked Cam Newton, and he's got that foot injury here. He may or may not miss this week. I expect him to miss this week. So Kyle Allen is definitely worth a pickup. Now, Kyle Allen, I don't think you're taking him in a dynasty league because I think Will Grier is going to be the heir apparent at some point. But Kyle Allen's another one of those quarterbacks that came from one of those air raid offenses in college. So I think I've seen somewhere there's 9 air raid offense quarterbacks now starting in the NFL. And here's my favorite, because I tweeted something similar. Dante Pettis as a top quarterback pickup. Pettis hasn't done a damn thing over the first 2 weeks of the season as a wide receiver. He did, however, complete a pass for 16 yards, which was his only week 2 stats. So Brad's just taking a little fun shot at Dante Pettis there.
I like that.
And you know what? Even in with the 49ers there, Deebo Samuel looked good in week 2. Moving along here to the running back position. Now, he kind of threw out Jordan Wilkins. Now, this full disclosure here, Jordan Wilkins is kind of like one of B. Martsy's man crushes coming out of the draft. He was very high on him coming out of the draft. Let's see here. What's he got written up here? Wilkins, the second-year pro out of Mississippi, was the Colts' leading rusher in week 2. He posted 82 yards on 5 carries, added a reception for 4 yards. There's no doubt that Mack is the Colts' workhorse, but Wilkins could prove valuable if Mack were to go down.
Yeah, and it's a team that's committed to the run. No team's rushing the ball more right now than the Colts, and obviously a lot of that game plan had to change when Andrew Luck retired. They want to run the ball, and yeah, he did that on 11 snaps. So yes, you give him a bigger workload, and I think he could fill in. Look, hey, team running back doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, he also posted Darwin Thompson there. We know Damian Williams suffered a knee injury in the 4th quarter. LaShawn McCoy underwent an MRI on his ankle. There was no major damage to the ankle from what the MRI came back as. But Darwin Thompson is someone to keep an eye on going forward. Dearness Johnson with the Cleveland Browns. Benny Snell. I think that was more because of the injury to Connor before we knew what was going on with James Conner. Sounds like he's going to be good. To go, Raheem Mostert is a guy that I absolutely love in San Francisco. Yep. I think this should be a priority pickup. He ran 13 times for 83 yards, caught 3 or 4 passes for 68 yards, and a touchdown against the Bengals. Yes, it's the Bengals. We know it's the Bengals. The Bengals are trash. Everyone scores on the Bengals. But Mostert did this last season, too, at the end. When he was the lone back standing there before he went down with his injury, he posted similar numbers. So Mostert's a guy that we know can do the job if it's given the opportunity. And same with his running back mate there, Jeff Wilson, that they pulled up off the taxi squad to give him an opportunity. He had 10 carries for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. So definitely a guy to deep rosters. Jeff Wilson's a guy you're picking up and stashing. Mostert's a guy you can put into your flex right away.
Yeah, 100%. So he was one of my ads in week 1 when Tevin Coleman went down. And a lot of that has to do with, I know we've talked about it. It's not that I don't like Matt Breida. I just worry. I think he's tough as nails. I worry about him being injured and not being in the game. So I went out and added Mostert in a lot of my deeper leagues in the first week. And outside of Kyle Juszczyk, guess who led the team in snaps last week? It was Raheem Mostert. So yeah, I think Mostert is a guy that, like you said, you could put him in your flex if you need to. Certainly, with the bye weeks coming up, that's a guy you want to have as an option then.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. He's one of my favorite guys. I liked watching him last season. I had a lot of them. I did drop him. I'm guilty of that. My bad. Especially when my rosters, we had to start cutting down before the season started. And he was one of my roster cuts because I thought McKinnon could have been back. I knew Breida would have a part in this whole thing.
Right.
I didn't think he'd have much of a go, but yeah, he's definitely a fantastic back, and he does good things there in San Fran. Wide receivers. So when Brad does his waiver wires, he goes deep. He looks for the deep guys because everyone can tell you to go pick up this guy because he's a stud. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We want to go, when he does these waiver wires, we want to go deep rosters to find those guys way down there. Devin Smith is obviously a guy he targeted. We talked about Devin Smith earlier. Malik Turner with the Seahawks. He caught all 3 of his targets for 54 yards. There's not much competition there. You got Tyler Lockett, you got DK Metcalf. Malik Turner could be a nice little pickup for you. Chris Conley in Jacksonville. We know he's an athletic freak. He tested off the charts. He led the game with 73 air yards. He now has 160 in a score through 2 games. D.D. Westbrook hasn't done nothing. Marquise Lee has not even sniffed the roster yet. He's been battling injuries. It's been basically DJ Chark and Chris Conley right now doing the damage in Jacksonville. Benny Fowler, not Bernie. That's how often we talk about him. Benny Fowler is the man, it seems, in New York as far as wide receivers go.
Yep.
Which blows your mind. I know they don't have very many receivers. Cody Latimer, Sterling Shepard. As far as wide receivers go, we know Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley are the ones that are going to get all the targets there, and rightfully so. But Benny Fowler caught 5 of how many targets?
10
targets. We talked about Sammy Watkins getting double-digit targets in a good offense. Yeah. Well, Benny Fowler got 10 targets in a shitty offense.
Right.
Well, crappy targets, garbage points are all points no matter how you look at it.
Opportunity.
So definitely someone to take a look at. I know I picked him up in the deep league where I needed wide receivers. I felt dirty doing it. It just felt wrong, but I did it. But the Mayor Bird out of Arizona, he also caught 6 of 7 passes for 45 yards. Demarcus Robinson, I don't think we need to do much more introduction there. 6 of 6 for 172 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The Oakland Raiders secondary is not the fleetest of foot. Okay, they're down their hard-hitting safety. Jonathan Abrams, I talked about this on some other shows. Jonathan Abrams keeps people honest when he's out there. Because if you catch it, he's going to thud you. You like those air yards, those balls that are going 40 yards in the air before they're caught, Jonathan Abrams would be making a break on those and putting the lumber to you. And chances are he's probably taking a penalty doing it. So it's really tough to get a feel there. We talked about Demarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman, and Sammy Watkins and how those targets are going to get divided up before Tyreek Hill comes back. You know what? If you're looking for a high risk, high reward kind of guy, Demarcus Robinson is someone you can put in your flex spot and hope for the best, I think. But as far as who's going to lead who and which week, I have no clue there. I know it's not going to be Sammy Watkins, though. Mac Hollins in Philadelphia, with both Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson exiting week 2. He was able to get 5 of 7 targets for 50 yards. That's just an ugly looking wide receiver room when it's down to Nelson Aguilar and Mac Hollins there. So I felt bad for the Eagles, and I felt bad for Eagles fans watching that. But the Eagles kept themselves in that game. And I've never been a Mac Hollins kind of guy, but 7 targets is 7 targets in a good offense. So definitely a guy you can definitely roster. I don't know if you're going to start him in a flex or anything, but someone you can roster and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Moving on. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add 2 quick names. If you're looking at a deeper league, Traquan Smith with the Saints missed practice today. Emmanuel Butler and Lil Jordan Humphreys.
Oh, don't say that name. I know. If Doug's still listening, horns down, right? Horns down. Oh man, he's still running his 40 right now. Him and Elijah Holyfield are racing each other, and they're about the 25-yard line.
Look, those guys got so much buzz around here from the beat reporters, people going to the practices, and those guys weren't working with Drew Brees. Guess who they were working with?
Probably Teddy Bridgewater, because no one else would work with him.
And Teddy Bridgewater is the quarterback. So yeah, sometimes you see that a guy that's the second string quarterback, he gets an opportunity. He's got a rapport with some of those wide receiver 2, 4 type guys, and voila, enter. Emmanuel Butler is the guy I really like. I like him. I think he's a guy that I'd love to see him get an opportunity. He's on the practice squad. Just paying attention to reports and see. But yeah, deep stashes, if that's what you're talking about. Those 2 guys are worth looking at. Yeah,
Emmanuel Butler was a guy that was preseason, off-season. He was one of those guys that you see getting added to a lot of rosters, especially before teams started having to do their cutdowns. Like as a fantasy player, you have a roster of X amount of players. In the off-season, it usually goes up by 10, 15 players. Butler was one of those guys that everyone would add. And hope for the best and see if he makes the main squad there. So I agree with you. He's someone to keep an eye on. Man, the tight end position is pretty ugly right now. A couple of the ones he threw out there were Demetrius Harris and Ricky Seals-Jones. I just actually watched my ticker here on my cell phone go off and watched my boy there, Scotty Lepp, pick up Demetrius Harris there. And a bunch of my other leagues, people have been picking him up free. There weren't waiver claims made on him, but there's been a lot of people picking him up since the waivers have gone through. Lance Kendricks is now with an option with the LA Chargers. If you're relying on Lance Kendricks, you're probably in a lot more trouble than you need to be in. Gerald Everett, he's a guy with all kinds of talent that we want to see him do well. We expect things out of him, but he was in that battle with Tyler Higbee. Last week, he got 3 of 5 targets for 21 yards against the Saints there. He became more involved, got more snaps when Higbee went down with that chest injury. And here's a name I've been hearing a lot of, Jeremy Sprinkle, with the Washington Redskins. Both of their tight ends are currently injured. That basically leaves the third-year pro out of Arkansas, former fifth-round pick, as the lone consistent pass catcher amongst tight ends for the Washington Redskins. And he's definitely an option that you need to be thinking about. I think we were talking about this on another show here the other night, and I can't remember if it was Stompy or Shane that was talking about Jeremy Sprinkle and adding him to your lineup.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm so glad that he mentioned Ricky Seals-Jones. And if I could have my way, I would love for him to get a good bit of snap for Cleveland this week with Njoku out. Harris is fine, and he, I think Harris could be a red zone type guy that, you pray he catches the ball and doesn't drop it. But Ricky Seals-Jones has some legitimate receiving chops and could make some big plays. It didn't work out with him in Arizona, but his head coach was Bruce Arians, and Bruce Arians, even with a guy like O.J. Howard, is incapable of getting a tight end a ball. So I don't know. Maybe he's not good. I feel like he has not gotten a really fair shake, and I'd love to see him get some snaps with Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield throwing him the ball. I feel like I'd love to see him get that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. There with Ricky Seals-Jones, and he was a guy that was hyped up a couple of years ago. We thought he was destined for big things at one point, and he literally dropped off the map. So it'd be a nice little redemption story for him to come back and do something. Now there's a bit of an opportunity with I think it was David Njoku who had surgery on his wrist. Actually, we didn't talk about it in the news and notes, but he's out now probably for a couple of weeks here at minimum. So he's got an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to get crazy because Brady, he gave us some IDP guys too.
Ooh, here we go.
Off the waiver.
I need to take notes on this.
So my two favorite ones on here are Danico Autry, which you should have right now. Is a defensive tackle. If you're in defensive tackle leagues, you got to start him. He should already be on your roster. But if you're in leagues that you can start defensive line, whether it's ends or tackles, he's still a guy who's still going to give you top 20 defensive line production. He had 4 solo tackles, 2 for loss, as well as 2 sacks, including that strip sack on 47 snaps. Now, another guy that he has on here, and if you're in any league that I'm in, he's not on the waiver wire because he's on my roster because I'm a homer. Benson Mawaya with the Oakland Raiders. Again, this week, this is his second consecutive multi-sack week he's had. And he's already halfway to his career high in sacks in just 2 weeks. So he's got 4 sacks in 2 weeks right now. And he's already halfway to his career high. So he's definitely a guy that you're watching. A couple others he added on here were Adam Butler with New England Patriots and Ronald Blair of the San Francisco 49ers. Ronald Blair, we're going to talk about that 49ers front is devastating. They've got some studs out there. They can roll them. They can keep them fresh. When Nick Bosa comes back healthy, shocking, he's injured. Anyone who knows me, there's a Bosa curse out there, and it's real. You got him, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas. You throw Ronald Blair in there now too. He finished with 4 tackles, an assist, 3 tackles for a loss, and a sack on 35 snaps. So definitely got to keep an eye on. Probably the hottest name on waiver wires, and yes, he's on your waiver wire at the linebacker position, is Shaq Barrett. 3 sacks the Colorado State product put out there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like he was all over the place again. And if you watched him, he disrupted that game completely, the Tampa Bay game. Harold Landry, he's a guy you're seeing getting more and more involved with the Tennessee Titans. Jerome Baker should be on your roster. He is the linebacker to own in Miami. Tahir Whitehead with the Oakland Raiders. Again, if you're in any league of mine, he's probably already on my roster because that's how I roll. And Matt Judon there with the Baltimore Ravens, who also had 2 sacks, 6 solo tackles, and 3 tackles for loss last week. Moving on to the defensive backs.
Hey, real quick on linebackers, let me ask you about a guy. So I'm in a league with you and Oklahoma Doug and a bunch of guys who are really good at IDP, right? How was I able to pick up Neville Hewitt on the waiver wire and he's scoring crazy amount of points? Was this not expected? Were you not expecting the playing time? Like what's making him productive now and that what you didn't foresee?
So the biggest thing on his production, it comes down to CJ Mosley's injury. He was able to step in and fill. So beginning of the season, a lot of people didn't draft him because there's Avery Williamson and CJ Mosley. Avery Williamson is down for the year. There was kind of a debate whether Hewitt or Cashman would be that number 2 option. Hewitt's a 4th-year player out of, I believe it's Marshall University. He's come in, took that job over, and he ain't going to give it back. Now, his production is going to continue to go up because of the injury to CJ Mosley, and that's where you're going to benefit the most as someone who picked him up off the waiver wire.
So I didn't know who he was. I love watching football. I love watching the defensive side of the football. I didn't know Neville Hewitt. I watched him against the Browns this week. He looked awesome. He was all over the field. Like I feel like every time I saw somebody being tackled, he was at least in the area. And he looked good to me.
So funny story in that one league I'm in with B Martzy there, a buddy of mine on another team there, his roster was trash, horrible roster. And he goes, "It's a mess. Can you help me? Can you fix this for me? Like come together." And Hewitt was on there, and Hewitt's a guy I've talked about for a long time. He was on the waiver wire, and I'm like, man, do I do the good buddy kind of thing, and do I put him on this guy's roster, or do I give the old little, I'm just going to put him on my roster? So anyway, I took him off the waiver wire, and I put him on my buddy's roster for him because I'm a nice guy.
Good guy.
Because he needed, I don't need the linebackers as much as he needed the linebackers, and I did want to try and help him get more competitive in that league too because he's got a pretty bad roster and it's a complete overhaul. Mm-hmm. But I did take one for the team there, and I was very aware of what Hewitt was doing.
Yeah. Good for you. I've done that before too.
Yeah. He's bigger than me too, though. So defensive backs, Vernon Hargraves has put out some serious numbers this year. He had 11 solo tackles and a pass defended against the Panthers last week. He's probably one of the top scoring DBs going right now. Whether he keeps that up or not is another story. This week, I'm not too sure how he's going to look this week, but Monte Nicholson with the Washington Redskins, Terrell Edmonds with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So just a little heads up with the Steelers. They did bring in Minkah Fitzpatrick. I imagine they're going to use him as a slot corner. Was it Sean Davis? Someone correct me if I'm wrong if you're hearing this. Their other safety, he's out for the year. So Terrell Edmonds is a solid pickup there. He had another 8 solo tackles, 11 total last week. Levi Wallace there with the Buffalo Bills, Jared Wilson with the Jaguars, and Darnell Savage. You should have, any keen IDP guy would have drafted him in their leagues in the rookie draft, but now he's making things hell for opposing receivers in that Green Bay secondary. So that's just a quick little brush up on the waiver wire. We've done a little weekend review. We've done the waiver wire. We did some news and notes. Can you throw some starts and sits at us so I can mock you?
I'll throw some quick ones out. So let's just big picture. I feel like I'm just going to make a permanent spot for Josh Allen until he gets over 70% ownership. He's had some great matchups. He's got another really good matchup this week. Josh Allen is doing great things at the quarterback position right now. He's not Lamar Jackson yet. He's not running the ball maybe as much as we want him to. But Josh Allen actually looks like a really good quarterback. He's got a great relationship there with John Brown. He's figuring things out with Cole Beasley. It hasn't come together quite as much as we want. But I absolutely love John Brown. Yeah, I do love John Brown, but I absolutely love Josh Allen this week. And, he plays the Cincinnati team, and Cincinnati has been a really interesting team to me. I actually kind of like a lot of what their offense is doing, but their defense has just been bad. And I expect Josh Allen to be top 5-8 quarterback this week.
Yeah, and that's tough to argue. He's been putting up some numbers this year, and he's looking like a quarterback. And that's probably the biggest thing I took out of what you just said. He's starting to look the role. He's starting to feel comfortable. And he's got some weapons there now in Buffalo there with Cole Beasley, Zay Jones, John Brown. If Robert Foster ever gets out there and does anything. So he's got some options this year that he hasn't really had in the past as well. Plus, he's got a good receiving back in Devin Singletary and a good, consistent Frank Gore there that he can always hand the ball off to. So,
yeah.
What else you got for your starts and sits?
So just I like the idea of starting Stafford. I'll briefly kind of mention him. I'm sitting Carson Wentz this week, just for a lot of. He's kind of banged up himself, and his team is banged up. Like you said, he's maybe going to target Hollins for 7-8 times. That's never going to be good for your final stat line. Over the running back, you mentioned Frank Gore. If you're pretty desperate, Frank Gore might not be a very bad start. He got 20 carries last week. If they're going to continue to turn around and hand him the ball, maybe he's going to have 20 carries for 80 yards, but he's probably going to fall into the end zone. Again, Cincinnati is not great against the run. How about Carlos Hyde? Carlos Hyde, Bill O'Brien is doing Bill O'Brien things right now. And yes, he's got Johnson, who's a really exciting running back. He's fast. He's the same size as Alvin Kamara, but apparently people don't think that he's capable of we got Oklahoma Doug here.
So fast.
Dougie, how you doing there, buddy?
What's up, man? How's it going?
What's up?
Oh, it's going here. We just went through some waiver wire. We're going into some starts and sits here with Calvin. And like I said, I told people here before the show started that people are going to be dropping into the show. I send out invites. I don't know who's showing up, and all of a sudden names start popping up, and we're going to get you in here. So I'm still trying to figure this thing out. I'm not quite up there with Nate yet, or ever will be up there with Nate when it comes to this production kind of thing. But hey, you know what? This is easy. This, what you see here on the screen, if I can do this, anyone can do it.
Just don't ask him to delete a video from YouTube, though.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Yeah. Now you see why I handed over most of the reins to Nate, right?
Yeah. Well, after this is done, I got to try and find the way to rip the audio, so to speak, and try and put it onto Podbean and stuff. So that's going to be another adventure there. So we'll see how that's going.
Right on. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you nice and clear here.
All right, right on. Well, thanks for having me on, man. What are y'all getting into next?
We were just kind of going through Calvin's starts and sits here. We just talked about Frank Gore and Josh Allen here, and we were just kind of moving along.
Right on.
Calvin likes himself some Bills.
Yeah, I like the Bills this week. And mostly it's because I think the Bengals are going to have a tough time. Defensively, they have not looked very good so far. They've given up a lot of points. Yeah. It's
also the Bills' first home game, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that ought to get. Yeah, I don't see Cincinnati getting much accomplished. I don't see them getting much of a push at all there in Buffalo with that rowdy crowd and that fired up atmosphere there. I guess you'd call it the home opener because it is. So 3 games into the season to start your home opener, these guys should be dialed up. There should be enough film to watch, these Bengals and figure them out. And I expect the Bills to come out with their ears pinned back. And I agree with Calvin.
And the one thing here, if we talked about this before, we talked about this on Rated IDP Live. the defense, the offense affects the defense and vice versa. It is, in fantasy, they go hand in hand, and people don't quite realize that. The problem in Cincinnati is we're not hearing Geno Atkins. We're not hearing Carlos Dunlap. We're not hearing Nick Vigil. We're not hearing these guys at Cincinnati on their defensive end, the defensive side of the ball, producing right now. We're not hearing these names. So that's why you're seeing a lot of stats getting put up by these offensive teams that they're facing week in and week out. And you can kind of expect that. Sean Williams, we haven't heard much of Sean Williams, and Sean Williams is one of the top point-producing safeties for fantasy IDP. You don't hear him very often in the first 2 weeks. And you're not hearing anyone from the Cincinnati Bengals going forward. Like, I was big on Vigil there, or Vigil, or whatever the hell you pronounce his name.
Vigil.
He hasn't done nothing yet, right? So when you don't hear names on the IDP end of things for a team, load up on those offensive players from who they're playing the week before, like the next week. The Frank Gores, the Devin Singletaries, the John Browns, because no one's doing anything on Cincinnati to stop anyone.
Right. And it's not really the case. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I wouldn't say Cincinnati runs a whole lot of plays like the way the Cardinals do, where, the Cardinals might not be, the greatest matchup to go against, but as many offensive plays as they run, they're a real good IDP matchup. So I really don't think Cincinnati's that way. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I don't see Cincinnati as that hurry up, go offense. Am I wrong on that, Calvin?
So Cincinnati, you said Cincinnati being a hurry up offense. Is that what you're saying?
They're not a hurry up offense.
If they were, or are they not? I don't consider them one. Are they?
No, I wouldn't call them a hurry up offense. I do, I've been a big Tyler Boyd fan, and I really like. I actually really like John Ross a lot. He's had a really good start to the season. He's playing. I know you're shaking your head. I know a lot. I made offers for John Ross everywhere that I could. Look, Zach Taylor came over from the Rams. To me, he's playing John Ross the same way that the Rams play Brandon Cooks. And so far, John Ross looks like he is producing in that role. So he's seeing the field. He's playing a lot of snaps, saw the most snaps of any of the wide receivers for that team last week. I did not think in a million years that was going to happen. I was down on him all offseason. But here we are. The season has told us something very different than we thought in the offseason. And, yeah, I think when you add A.J. Green to this offense, this is going to be a good-looking offense.
And apparently today he had the walking boot off, and there was people saying that he didn't look too bad out there.
Yeah, that's right. And look, last week I see your San Francisco hat on there, Doug. Your San Francisco 49ers, they were out there. That front seven is nasty. So that's why I'm not too worried about Joe Mixon either. I think Joe Mixon is going to have a lot better days ahead, but that's a tough team to run on.
Yeah, I had a few things going on. Some people know. So I didn't catch the game. I'm going to watch it on Game Pass tomorrow in the track hole while I'm getting some operating done.
Nice.
And catch back up on it. But I'll get some graphs done, and that's where I kind of catch up on most of my. All I have is the Game Pass, so I might not get the game till the next day, but the graphs is where it helps me decide how many snaps these guys are getting, and I just ain't got around to that this week, so I wasn't sure about, after 1 week, you can assume some things, but after 2 weeks, it kind of starts becoming a trend, and then after 3 weeks, then we can kind of start seeing some things, so, I didn't want to jump to conclusions about a team being a hurry-up offense just after 1 week. Mm-hmm. When I ain't got to watch week 2 yet, so that's what I was asking you there, Calvin.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Doug jumps on here, and you had a question at the very beginning. What do you do with Leighton Vander Esch? Are you starting him this week?
Well,
against Miami?
Yeah, I am, because if I got Leighton Vander Esch, there's a good chance that I took him early or took him early in rookie drafts, meaning that I probably passed up on one of these good wide receivers, maybe one of these good running backs, second-year guys. So there's a good chance that you might not have anything much better. It's the same. I heard when I was first joining, I heard y'all talking about Neville Hewitt. That's somebody that teams might own with Leighton Vander Esch. If I had maybe, a loaded defensive end group or a loaded defensive tackle group, loaded safety group, if I had one of them loaded where I just knew that I had 3 studs to start, I might take the gamble and play Hewitt over LVE. Yeah. Say I'm a 2-0 team, and maybe I'm playing a team that's in the top half of the division that I might think can beat me and knock that undefeated streak off. Yeah, I might roll the dice with Neville over LVE. Yeah, why not?
I'm just kind of taking a look here at where I got Hewitt rated as my 8th linebacker this week, sitting at number 8 against New England Patriots. I like the matchup for him there, and I think you're gonna hate me for this. So 8, 9, 10. I got Vander Esch down at 16 this week because that matchup is not. Miami doesn't run a whole lot of plays because they're inconsistent. The plays they do run are usually passing plays, and I don't know if you've seen Kalen Ballage there. He's ducking balls now. He's ducking balls on patterns. So it's not a knock on Vander Esch. I got even Jalen Smith even a little bit lower than 16 this week. Like if you invested him, you've got to start him. I got a league where I've been starting Terrell Edmonds there and Tremaine Edmonds and Deion Jones, and they've done nothing for me so far this year. It's been painful to watch. But Vander Esch for me, he's still in that linebacker 2 range for this week. So if you're starting, you got to start 2 linebackers. He's definitely in that range. But I'm starting guys like Jordan Hicks, Neville Hewitt, even Joe Schobert over him this week. Ooh, that just sounds dirty saying it, doesn't it? But I think that's more on the Dolphins than it is on Vander Esch and Smith.
Real quick, I just looked up the most snaps on the offensive side of the ball in the NFL this season. Cincinnati Bengals are 4th in the NFL.
Oh.
Only 3 snaps behind number 1. Guess who is – just take a wild guess on who number 1 would be.
Arizona Cardinals.
They're close. The Cardinals are number 3.
Can't be the Ravens because they played the Dolphins earlier.
Not the Ravens. Ravens are way down there.
Yeah.
Man. Oakland Raiders.
Raiders. Number 1, Philadelphia Eagles.
That makes sense. It's a solid offense, even though that what they put on the field last week wasn't exactly much of an offense.
Number 2 is interesting too. Detroit Lions. It's 2 weeks. I mean, a lot of this is going to change, but yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Cincinnati being up there at number 4.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have guessed the Lions at number 2 either. So
right.
Well, the Lions played that cheat code team in the Cardinals.
And they had that overtime.
I thought they would be clearly number 1.
Yeah, and you know what? Anytime you get that extra period there, that extra quarter overtime, you're going to get a few extra snaps on other teams too, right? So
that's true. So if you look at it by snaps broken down, maybe divided by quarters, Cincinnati might actually be number 2.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. The coaching staff over there running quicker plays.
Sean McVay coaching tree sprouting out.
Oh boy! So who else you got starting this week? Or sitting? What are you looking at here, Calvin?
Well, so let me ask you this: what do you do with Le'Veon Bell this week against the New England Patriots? There's a lot of ways for him to be involved in the game. Sure, he can catch a lot of passes. If you're in a PPR league, maybe he gives you enough catches. But that Patriots defense looks pretty sick, and they've got some guy named Luke Falk starting for them this week. The Patriots, we know, like to take away the best weapon against the on the field on the opposing team. That's clearly Le'Veon Bell. They'll send pressure at Luke Falk and try to make him beat him. I can definitely see some scenarios where I've got better options on my bench that I can plug in over Le'Veon Bell.
And I think that comes down to what your options are too. If you got like a Terry McLaurin or something there, you can put it in the flex spot instead of a Le'Veon Bell. Then I think you got to do it.
Yep.
I was looking at those actual stats there for the Patriots defense, and they are top team against quarterbacks. They're a top team against the running back. They're a top team against opposing wide receivers and tight ends. Like they're the top against all fantasy scoring and snap counts right now going on in the league. So I'm kind of tempering expectations of anyone playing the Patriots, any player there. So yeah, I definitely agree with Le'Veon Bell is probably a sit if you have other options out there, or if you have to start him, then temper those expectations considerably. Like Robbie Anderson is a sit for sure because he's going to get this the Gilmore treatment, right? He's you're not going to hear his name called. Crowder, on the other hand, could be a solid start for the Jets. Thanks to Crowder, Dougie beat me in that one league on that garbage catch at the very end of the game. That one catch.
Right, and just to play a little devil's advocate here, I might start Lev Bell. To the point of Marlon Mack earlier, why do we think Marlon Mack's getting all them touches? Do you think maybe it has something to do with Jacoby Brissett running under center, and maybe all the pressure maybe all the blitz packages and stuff coming at Brissett has more draw plays put into the scheme, more into the offense. The same way Crowder maybe could be efficient in this game as a quick as that slant receiver, a quick get out. I think Lev Bell could be the same safety blanket because there ain't. What the Fox got to throw the ball somewhere. Like it can't be 100% run. I mean, it's not going to work. I don't think it's ever happened, but so, and I suggest, I bet the pressure's going to be on his face all game long. He's going to get happy feet and want to dump off. So
And
I'm not that scared of Lead Bell this week.
And the one knock on Falk since college has always been he can't really throw outside the numbers. He's always that dink and dunk, and he's a very accurate passer within the numbers and certain distance. He's not going to be able to push that ball down the field. So those dink and dunk type receivers, that quick short passing game, running back, Jamison Crowder in the slot, if he's going to get passes to be complete, it's going to be there.
I can absolutely, and that's why I made that qualification. Like if you're in a PPR league, he may get enough catches that it makes it worth playing for you. I can totally see him getting like 15 targets this week. That's definitely, yeah.
Nobody would be shocked.
Yeah, and you guys know the Patriots defense. So who's going to be on him? Is it going to be Jamie Collins, or who's going to be asked to contain Le'Veon Bell? I can maybe he gets 15 targets, maybe he gets 8 to 10 catches, but 30 yards, 40 yards. I can see them keeping him in front of them and not letting them get.
The Jets don't have a tight end to worry about, a pass catching tight end to worry about. So that pretty much brings the strong safety up. Which who is it going to be this week? Is it McCourty, Coach? I mean, is that who we can count on being the strong safety?
Well, we can definitely count on McCourty being on the field. Whether he's the one who's going to be kind of assigned Le'Veon Bell duties, I don't know. I don't know what's been going on with Patrick Chung lately. He's broke his. Is he out with that arm injury?
Yeah, but I didn't. I ain't heard the latest about that, and I'm pretty sure Chung plays a lot of that role where he'll come up and get that tight end or that.
Yeah, normally it would be Chung. That would be Chung's responsibility.
About. Right, but I mean, outside of that, I think it's pretty much a void for any Patriots defense player, just like it always is.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of a lot of better options than Jamie Collins, to be honest. I'll get my ranks updated in the morning, but Jamie Collins ain't going to be too high up there. I'd rather start LVE
There
all
you go.
day long. All day long.
Yeah, so we kind of went through some starts and sits here this week. We broke down some news and notes. We got Dougie that came on here and share a little wisdom with us here. We're going to wrap this show up here. So, Calvin, we know we're going to find you over at the Dynasty Vipers and tweeting out some stuff here and there. Oklahoma Dougie, where can we find you, brother?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for letting me jump on, Calvin.
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you, man. I
Right.
jumped on Twitter as I was in the chat earlier. Made sure we was following each other. I seen we was. I kind of know people by their little Twitter profile.
Right.
You know, little picture up there. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I know people. So, yeah, I know your work, man. You do good stuff over there, and you're with a good dude there. You know, coach over there at the Vipers, man. So we'll have to get you on the show sometime. You can find me. I'm a writer ranker at idpguys.org. I'm a video editor manager at Rider Digest Network YouTube page. Head over there after you get off of here. Check that out. And check out Rated IDP Live. Friday live IDP show with the yours truly up here in the top as the co-host and Nate Cheat. Pretty fun show. Jump into some segments and let our hair down and pretty fun
Absolutely.
stuff. So that's
what we have. So for Oklahoma Doug and Calvin Miller, formerly Cal Shoemake. I don't know what happened there, but now the name's Calvin Miller and not Cal Shoemakes. Now I'm really confused. I'm Matt Donnelly here at Dingus4. Check us out over at the Vipers, dynastyvipers.com. Go check out Rated IDP Live and the IDP guys over there. Check them out. Make sure you give them a follow. And this is officially the end of the very first live stream we've put out. So it'll be
closing time. Time for you to go home to the places you will be found. Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can.